Welcome to DestroyerAlive episode 77, and this time we're back and we're speaking English again. Even if my English was crap today, but yeah.
Well, thank God that we're speaking English, because if we had to speak the other language, I'd be in deep trouble.
Yeah, or if you're speaking French, we'd be in very deep trouble. So.
Yeah, well, I think we all would be.
I can say je ne sais pas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
That's what it means. He knows. You know the most important one.
Yep.
Do you speak French? Je ne sais pas.
Actually, I had French for 2 years in school, and the last exam I had, what we call plural. Is it when you just have to speak?
You mean the oral one?
Yeah, oral. Yeah.
Oral.
Yeah. And I had to listen to a cassette and answer questions afterwards, and I just wrote down the whole story in what you call when you just write it as you hear it, you know.
Okay. Verbatim.
And like sounds.
Okay.
And I just read.
Like sound. That's you know. When I used to play for a band, and we were doing cover songs, and since there were no lyrics printed in the old days in the 70s, it was rare that you had an album with all the lyrics printed on it. So I had to figure out what the words are, and I didn't speak English, so I was writing by sound.
Yep.
So if I would show those pieces of paper to somebody who speaks English, they'd say, "What the heck is that?"
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of funny. So it's pretty much like you did.
Yeah, and we've forgotten to say, Magnus has a beard today and speaks English.
Yeah.
No, it's nice to have Roger back here for this episode. We have a guest later, DeDe Mae Nichols, Sean Delaney's niece, and we thought it would be really great to have Roger back when speaking about Sean Delaney again.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, because it's a privilege to be talking with DeDe and you guys.
Yeah, it's always nice to have Roger on the show, so it's great. It's great.
So first we'll start with talking about it's in the last couple of days they posted the notice from Vincent.
Vinny Vincent.
Everybody was waiting for a video. I'm not really sure why we expected a video.
No.
Didn't they say that there's going to be a video at the end of the month?
Yeah, but even I thought we were going to get a video.
Well, I think people were hoping.
Okay.
To have a video. That's a little different.
Because I think it actually only said message actually on September 1st. You will have a message from Vinny, but then everybody thought it was a video, but.
There's been a lot of, in the old days, it would be ink being drawn about this news because everybody is talking about it. And when you read all the comments from the fans, there's like some pretty harsh comments and there's some very positive comments. Yep. My take on it is I was very excited when I saw that because, first of all, Vinny is the only signature that I have missing in my books. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be there for sure, regardless. Now, is he going to be there? A lot of people say, I hope he's going to be there. I think, me personally, that he's going to be there because, first of all, there's a lot of money involved in this. There's a lot of money that he can make out of that. If he's going to promote something, this is a nice way and a nice bench for promoting something. And second, the way I look at it is a lot of people have a lot of signatures. They have sets of autographs that they want to complete, and Vinny is like the only one missing. So that's why like the meet and greet got sold out within 3 days.
Yeah,
it was
like that.
It was so quick. So and then just a lot of people right now, they're like, God, man, I'm going to be there the day of the expo. Now I don't know how many people are going to show that day, but that's going to be a lot of people. There's no doubt about that. So
yeah, because it feels like everything has to be very, very well organized. Because otherwise, I think it will be chaos in some way. Because if it's too much people and it's too, I don't know, it has to be very well organized.
That's why I feel more comfortable the fact that I have the meet and greet now, because we'll be able, even if it's 150 people, it's supposed to be 100. Let's say it's 150 people, we'll be able to get the 3 autographs that I need the day before.
Yeah.
So the day after, I can focus on, because I'll be bringing my books, so I'll be focusing on displaying the books and not having to worry to go stand in line and wait for those.
That's the way I feel also. As long as the first day the meet and greet goes well, everything that's well after that is a bonus.
Me personally also, yes, it is exactly. And which bring also, I was under the impression, like, if it works very well on the East Coast, they're gonna more than likely look into making one on the West Coast in California, where I live. And now, if something goes wrong in those 2 days, then there's not going to be a California one. But hopefully everything's going to go fine and they can make another one here, because that would be great. Then all I have to do this time will be to drive there, and I can bring my stuff there. But I'm really confident. I hope it's going to happen and everything will go flawlessly. There'll be some hiccups, that's for sure, because I think this one is going to have a bigger turnout than people anticipate. I think it's going to be like 3 times of what Peter was having going on. There's more people hungry for autographs, because it's almost like Michael Jackson, for example. He was giving a very, very few autographs. So if you had a chance to get one from him, people would go for it, right? Versus like Gene and Paul, they always give autographs like left and right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that people wouldn't want to go for it. Of course, people will go for it for Gene and Paul. But when you get somebody that is so elusive for 20 years and never showed up, and you have a chance to go and get an autograph finally that you've been waiting 20 years to get, like me, I'm there.
Yeah, because we talked about it here on the show a few times, that Gene and Paul autographs is not as special anymore. Because if you think about how many meet and greets they do, I mean, on a Kiss tour, they have a meet and greet every day, and I mean, they write like 100 autographs or something each meet and greet, or even more. So, you know, having Gene and Paul's autographs is not as special anymore as it used to be, because they write so many all the time.
They're still powerful though, because I mean, I still have my album alive, and I have Gene missing on it. So trust me, when I have a chance to meet Gene and get the autographs of on my Alive album, I'm there. I mean, I really need it. So but I think that Vinny is going to be quite bigger than people anticipate to be.
Absolutely.
It's like the most important thing for me is a picture. I can't understand why I didn't take a picture with him in '96.
Same with me.
Hey, he was walking in front of me in 1984, going from the stage, from the dressing room to go on stage. He walked by me, and I didn't even take a picture of him. I had my camera with me. I was taking Paul and Gene, but I didn't think of it. And when he walked by me, his expression was almost like, okay, everybody wants to see Paul and Gene, so he was walking. Then he had a few people talking too, but you can tell he was kind of down. He was, and then when they all went to the hotel, Gene and him were the only 2 that did not come back to see the fans that were in the lobby. But I mean, I wish I did it at that time. But hey, now we have a chance again. So hopefully it's going to work.
Yeah.
So Nils, what are you planning to bring to get signed by Vinny? Do you have any plans?
I'm actually not sure. I'll probably print out something. I really want some.
Photo?
Probably. And but I have a lot of Vinny signatures, so that's not my big thing. The big thing is meeting him and having the picture.
Yeah.
I had his first fan club packet. I used to have that. I sold it to a friend of mine. I kind of regret now I did that, but it's okay. As long as I get my book signed, that's what I want.
I even have from last time. Did I show it last time?
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, I have a complete Invasion promo EP signed by the whole band.
Wow. Okay.
Cool.
Hello. Surprise.
So some other stuff. I probably show that also. Complete by the whole band.
That's really cool.
So, but I didn't get all of them myself. It's like I have some I got by myself. So
I actually got one of Vinny's shirts from the Lick It Up tour. So it was used in on the Scandinavian part of the Lick It Up tour. It was used.
All right.
I think it was used in Denmark and some other place. So I got that one.
Yeah.
Good.
But I think we'll move on to an amazing guest.
Yes.
So please welcome DeDe, Sean Delaney's niece.
Yes.
Okay, then we will want to say welcome to DeDe Mae Nichols. That's correct pronouncing?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We tried this. It's almost 2 months ago now, and we had some problems with the film. It's like the content was really great, but it's all the film was just flickering. So now we try again, and it probably,
cross our fingers that everything will work this time.
And it will probably be better because we know what we want to talk about this time. But you could probably introduce yourself. You're Sean Delaney's niece.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am. I'm his niece.
Yeah. And,
what's that?
Yeah, and he lived with you for a couple of years also.
Oh, he did from 1983 basically till he passed away. That was his primary home address. So
cool. Yeah, since this is a Kiss podcast, we could probably start with your first. What was your first time you met Bill and Sean together? They were always together from what you remember, or?
From what I remember, it was always Uncle D and Uncle Sean.
Yeah.
And the first time I met him, I was 10.
Yeah.
So that's 1975. But we already had known about Kiss back in 74.
Yeah.
Because Uncle Sean and Uncle Leon Delaney would come home for Christmas every year.
Mm.
And so we always got albums, we got stickers, we got posters, anything that got released, we got sent in the mail or a big package for Christmas, it was just awesome. And of course, my grandma Delaney liked to steal ours, but I'll say she borrowed them.
Yeah.
That was a nice connection.
Yeah. She's one that supported her boys no matter what they, chose to do. She believed in both her boys, so.
I think it runs in the family because Sean was pretty much like that with Kiss. He wanted to protect them all the time, and they were their boys, his boys, and he was very protective.
Yeah, and both Sean and Leon worked with Kiss in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they did. And Leon's wife, Melanie Delaney, worked there too.
Okay.
She was like the first office lady for Kiss, for coin management.
Oh, wow, that's very cool. I didn't know that, actually. Wow.
Yeah, because the whole day when we were in New York when I was 10, that first time we went into that Pan Am building, we met Melanie, Bill was there. Of course, Gene was in the elevator with us. And, Leon was there. So I remember it.
How was it when you said Gene was with you? What was the first meeting with him?
Saying that Sean wasn't our uncle, and my mom set him straight. And then Gene wanted to get out of the elevator and tell Sean he didn't know who us crazy people were. And Sean says, "This is my mother, this is my sister, this is my niece, this is my nephew, and this is Leon's son, the other nephew." So my mom, I remember my mom just pulling Sean aside and saying, "That is the ugliest man I've ever seen in my life." I was like, Mom.
Well, she didn't hide anything, right? She wanted to tell what she was thinking.
I don't think there is a Delaney that hides anything. It just comes out.
Cool.
If you're going to dish it, then people, should be able to take what gets, give them back. But it's the truth. I mean, they speak their peace of mind, all of them.
So that was the first time that you met a member of KISS.
Right.
It was Gene.
It was Gene, and then Paul, and then Peter and Ace.
And
in that order.
What was your reaction for every one of them? Did you have a different thought going on?
The friendliest one, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paul, I remember just being genuinely friendly, and like us kids were his way there.
Yeah.
It was never like that type of attitude. He was always genuine that way. And of course, my grandma wanted to know everything. How do you guys walk around in those hills? How do you jump on stage and do this or that? And of course, my grandma always asked all the questions, She just entertained her, like she was family, Just they kept her in the loop for everything.
It must have been cool for you to meet them as normal people, so to speak, without makeup and everything. It must have been a cool experience because you have seen pictures of the band in makeup and everything, and then you meet them without the makeup.
Yeah, and back then, of course, because it was such a huge deal, you could never say you saw them with their makeup off.
No.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's fair.
You could never, say that, even though us as kids wanted to go tell all our friends we know what they look like. Sean sat us down and very seriously told us that was one thing we could not say.
Oh.
We could, back then in the 70s, let people know that we'd seen them with their makeup off.
Wow.
So, it's just, I remember that serious conversation, and for him to be able to do it on a level for children to understand it, Sean put it straight out there for us. So
it wasn't just that you weren't allowed to take pictures of them; you weren't allowed to speak of it at all.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, that's very serious. I didn't know that they were that serious about it. Wow.
It was that serious. That's why all those pictures, like when, my early memories, Gene, when he was with Cher, he's always out in public with that bandana, pictures on his face and everything and stuff. So that was to always conceal their identity until the time was right when they took the makeup off.
Yeah.
Nice.
But that's the first time you met them. You saw them live at the same time, or did that come later?
We had, before we went, they were in Utah.
Yeah.
And before we left, so they went from Utah back to New York.
Okay.
So, and that's what we were doing. We saw them in Utah, and that's when we got to bring all our friends and everything to the concerts. My grandmother went, my mother went with us, Uncle Leon was with us. And then there was like 20 kids of friends between me, my brother John, and cousin Russ. And we all got to bring people, and the limos drove us there, and the limos took us home, and everybody had a backstage pass. And that's the concert where my mom stopped that joint from going down, and Leon's like, Dory, sis, keep it moving. He just did it.
So you said you had backstage pass?
He's like, yes.
So did you go?
We've always had when we've gone to concerts.
I'm sorry. Did you mean? Did you go see them like before the concert and then backstage, or you went after?
Us three kids, always got to see them.
Okay, cool.
Before and after, but if we had friends with us, a lot of times at that age they weren't allowed to. They went backstage, but they didn't get to see them. Like shake all their hands and things like that. So
Got it.
Did you get to take pictures with them and stuff also, so you can show it at school later, or?
Well, Sean always told us, and he says, if you guys take pictures, people are going to start coming after you guys for things. And I don't think it would be safe for you kids. And I just left it at that. I figured if I need a picture, I'll get one. I'll ask him. You know, he'll come to else. So.
But that must have been the coolest thing to have at that time. If you could take pictures of you and kids to school and show to the other kids, that would have been great in the 70s.
Oh, that would have been phenomenal. But what we did have is Russell went to a different school at the time, and John and I were at one school, and I remember Uncle Sean flew in, went to all our classes, introduced himself, told the principal, told all the teachers that we're not liars, that this is who their uncle is, this is what he does, and yes, we've met the band Kiss, and then he flew out. And it really just, it made me feel how important we were to Uncle Sean, you know, number one. And that what we were going through in school mattered, you know. Yeah. Because we'd get called into the principal's office telling us to stop lying and things like that. And we're like, we're not lying. No. We're telling the truth, I promise. So, you know, that always has been a memory of Sean's that has really stuck with me, how he did that. He didn't have to.
No, exactly.
You know, he did that for us kids, and so there's a lot to remember, a lot.
And you met Aucoin even before you met Kiss, didn't you?
Right, and when we were in New York, we actually stayed in Bill's house in New City, him and Sean's. Okay. So that was I think that's in New Jersey. Yeah. And we were there, and that's where we stayed the whole time we were visiting. Yeah. Was that the same? Was that the same place where Megan lived when she lived with them? Yes. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah, with the big windows and like up in the wooded area. Yeah. I've met her once, and she's really nice. So. Really
your first impression. Yeah. Your first impression when you met Bill Aucoin, what was it?
You know what? He was introduced to us that this was our other uncle, and we just always accepted us as children. We always knew, you know, and we never judged anything back in the 70s. I mean, never. It just they were our uncles, and that's how we always. Anytime I talked to Bill, it was, how are you doing, Uncle Guy? I love you, Uncle Guy. I mean, it was never, well, Bill. I mean, even when Sean passed and he called me on the phone, I still called him Uncle Guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just something that I have always done. Some of my posts, I'll put Uncle Guy. Mm-hmm. You know, nice. I don't put Bill Aucoin. You know, because to me, he was family. Yeah. You know, he was, you know, the later years, he would come out to Utah and hear the bands all the time. And, you know, we spent a lot of time in our adult life seeing him. So.
Everyone I talked to that met Bill before, they only have positive things to say.
I love Bill. I don't think the planets could have aligned any better in the universe for Bill and Sean to be together with their talents to create what we all know as Kiss now. You know, that doesn't happen very often in people's lifetimes, that you see something like that. So it's like they needed.
Yeah, it was a great combination. Those two guys, yes. You know, working together and with Kiss and created Kiss almost. I have to say, they almost created the Kiss as what we know as Kiss. So yeah, that's it's interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe no, she's back. You were frozen for a little bit here for me. Yeah, yeah. You were talking about the last time you. Okay, there you're back again.
Good.
Yeah, I think the connection is going a little on and off here. I was thinking about the last time we spoke a lot about the formative years of. You told about when you went to school. You got the story about you had to be nice because Sean and Liam hadn't been very nice at school.
Oh, that was horrible. I mean, Sean, when he went to Utah, went to Pleasant Grove High School. Leon went to Orem High School. And never in my wildest dreams would I think I would get a call from both my uncles and tell me, you know, you're going to high school and I don't think they'll know who you are, but you're Nichols and you don't carry the Delaney name. You should be okay. And that was as far as it went till my third day of high school.
Yeah.
And I got called into that principal's office and told if I pull anything that Leon pulled on the playing court, I would never see the playing court. And I'm like, what did he do? You know, and they come to find out my principal was his basketball coach. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, really? I don't get a break here?
That's cool.
They had a lot of things on you.
But it's like, we spoke last time also a little about Hellbox, the book.
Yeah.
And how involved were you in the book?
We weren't. That's he made sure, and I'm not trying to badmouth him, but he made sure that Sean signed a piece of paper that no matter what happened to Sean, he could go through with it. And well, I didn't think it was finished, nor did the estate pick the picture that's on the book. We had the other one, picked out. And I just... gave us an autographed copy of the book. I read it, and there's no meat. For me, there's no meat and potatoes of who Sean Delaney.
Okay, here.
Of what he really went through. It's like.
Problems with the connection.
The connection goes on and off here, certainly. So now we can see and hear you again. I think we'll try again about the book. It's like you said there were no meat and potatoes. Okay. Now we're back again. Do you lose us?
You guys keep freezing up on me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay. Now also, or?
Right now, it seems to be okay.
Okay. Let's try again. We'll try a little more about the book again. You said there were no meat and potatoes.
I don't think... I think it lightly skims what Sean was trying to put across.
Yeah.
Because if anybody knows Sean Delaney, that book is not eccentric enough to be Sean Delaney.
Because for me, I think...
That's my feeling.
For me, it's I think it's pretty good up until he meets Bill Aucoin, and after that it's pretty thin and weak, I think.
Right. I mean, like the very first part starts out, but then you lose it, and that's what I mean. If people know Sean Delaney, and I think that's why so many people had an opinion about the book, was because people who had really met him and knew things, it wasn't in the book.
Okay.
The way we all know Sean would have said it, you know? It's like...
because for me it felt like there probably had been more content there, but there had been content that had been taken out of the book. But I'm not sure if that could have happened.
I think he thought, in a nutshell, he had a lot of money to be made by this book, not Sean,
Yeah.
the person who wrote it. And instead of taking the time to finish researching things,
Yeah.
I think he just, pushed it and published it. And because it threw us off guard that he was doing it.
Okay. Because I think it's so thin, it's more or less just the skeleton. So he should have built something around the book.
Yes, exactly. And it's, because there's much more to Sean Delaney than what's in that book.
Yeah.
Of what, his life, what he did with Kiss, what he's done with other bands, things like that would have told his whole life experiences.
Yeah, because it more or less stops after he came back and had a negative experience with Howard Marks, and then it more or less stops. So it's like, for us fans, it's more or less what happened after 1980. It's like more or less what I know are just bits and pieces like Wasatch and what's the name of the other band again, Roger?
You're talking about Piper?
No, the band you saw live.
Oh, Blonde Tongue.
Blonde Tongue, yeah.
Nah, you got it.
I still have my ticket. Still have my ticket.
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah, he played at a small place called the Mason Jar in Phoenix, and this place is so small you can put maybe 200 people at the most, right? It's like a club. And when I walked in here, he was already performing. He was playing keyboard in the back, and he was singing. And then he took a break. He came to see us. Actually, he came to see the man who was supposed to get him the deal to write his book. And that was back in 1994. And so you see, Sean always wanted to write a book for a very long time, and he was really struggling and trying to go for it. And so he was hoping that this man would give him a good help and deal to go ahead and do it. So this man was smoking a cigar. I will never forget that. Smoking the cigars in there, and then he was like a big shot. And then Sean came to take a break. He came to see us. Hey, guys. And he was talking actually about that song he just did, that it was a tongue twister because there was a lot of words that were difficult to sing together. And he was like, oh, God, I could have done better on that one.
Yeah.
So he was always a perfectionist, as we know, and very dramatic too at the same time. So that was a fun memory that I have of him at that time.
It's always fun to watch him in concert.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing he did after the Scat Bros, that was with the Woke group, or?
The first thing he did after Scat Brothers, he actually, let me think in order here how they all went. After Scat Brothers, because 1983 is when he came back to Utah, so that was when his mother, my grandmother, passed away.
Yeah.
And so he had come back to Utah in 83, and he had come from Washington State, the state of Washington, when he moved back to Utah. So he was still writing music there. He was still trying to do things, but there really wasn't a band in Washington he was working with. He enjoyed going to nightclubs and seeing what the entertainment was, helping people out, and things like that. When he came back to Utah, that's when they, actually, the first time he came back to Utah, then that's when he left to Arizona. So Blonder Tongue is the next one. And then after Blonder Tongue is when he helped with Wasatch.
Yeah.
And then Smith and Jackson and all that. So he I knew for a long time he'd always wanted to write a book because he'd always talked to my mother and I about it. And he told us, well, there might be, he was hesitant because my children at the time were active in the LDS religion. And he said, I don't want them to go through what you went through, you know, as a child. It tells his story. And I just told Uncle Sean straight up, I said, it's your life, it's your story.
Yeah.
He tell it, you know, it's like, it is what it is. And he was so good to my kids. I mean, just like I said before, he was there for every birth and everything. He was the best thing that ever could have happened to my kids, you know, giving them hope and strength and guidance and things that maybe he shouldn't have said to them, but he did it because he's Uncle Sean.
Yeah.
Nice. I think we all kind of hope we met someone like him when we were young. Anyway, we always look for a role model and somebody that is out of the box, actually, like that. And it's like very entertaining and exciting.
Yeah, we should say also that sadly, me and Nils never met Sean. So
no,
sadly. So
I'm so sorry.
He only were in Europe once, I think, when at Expo in Holland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if you ask Kat,
yeah,
you know, she'll tell you that Sean throws lighters at her all the time now. So she'll say
wow.
things are flying through things. I said, it's Sean. He's trying to get your attention.
Well, there's a story that you talked about last time, and I really would like you to talk about it because I don't think anybody ever heard about that. I was mentioning that when I met Sean, he was struggling about money, and he was talking to the fact that when he was on tour with Kiss, I believe in 76, 75, 76, he had a check at one point that he was so busy touring with them that he forgot to cash out. And then he said to me, he said, I didn't realize that there was an expiration date on that check. So when he went to cash it, it was, I think, $35,000. And when he went to cash it, he couldn't cash it. So he had to go and see Bill again and say, hey, you need to do something because I'm too late for that check. Yeah. And that made you think about that thing about the car.
Oh,
if you remember that. Yeah. If you can go over that, because this is a good story, please.
When Sean was driving truck for my mom, they had Nikki Transport. And he was in California, and he thought, oh, I got enough change in my pocket. I can go in. It's one of his favorite coffee shops, and he'd go in and get a cup of coffee. So he went in there, and there were some guys there that were just happened to be telling a story about Sean Delaney and this brand new Mercedes that he bought. And they said, whoa, it's Sean. And Sean's trying to remember everything, and they said, tell us the story, Sean. And Sean goes, well, you seem to be doing a good job. You tell the story. Because at the time, Sean really couldn't remember what they were talking about. And so he had ordered a black on black Mercedes. I'm not sure exactly which model it was. And paid cash for it. It was paid for. And it had been sealed in the crates from the 70s to, I want to say, right before, 98, 97. And he called to see exactly what he could do about getting his car, and they just auctioned it off 3 days before, and it had still been right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy story.
So he actually had the car when you spoke to him.
I mean, the time I met him, it was in 94 and 95, and he didn't have a car. He was struggling so bad, and he could have definitely used it at that point, for sure. That's a totally crazy story. Wow.
Him and cars always have crazy stories. I mean, he was headed out, and we were driving behind a few hours, and we drove by, and I looked, there's Uncle Sean peeing on his radiator because there's fire under his car. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, This is going to make the news.
That's so cool.
Wow. Okay. Never heard that one.
I know. That's a good one, though. It happened.
Oh, I believe you. God.
And really,
yeah.
I was going to say, really, only he could get away with it, you know.
Mm.
He's a character.
We also spoke about last time about the funeral that Gene paid for it all, didn't it?
Yeah, Gene did. Lydia and Bill were at my house, and Bill asked me, he said, DeDe, what is it that you need? And I said, well, I've just signed the paperwork for the funeral, and you know, it will be a financial burden. And he says, may I use your phone? And I said, absolutely. He made a phone call to Gene, and he told Gene, you know, you owe it to the family. And to me, it wasn't even that, because Gene, in my eyes, did not have to
do it. No.
Do it, you know. And to me, it was, this man is helping us as a family, is helping Sean to be buried, you know, with respect. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated it 100%, 100%. Mm-hmm. And which made it easier for me to deal with the phone calls coming from every news place, you know, all that kind of stuff, and trying to keep my 5 kids in line, my brother, my cousin, you know, trying to keep everybody focused on this funeral. You know? It was an intimidating thing, but at the same time, I had the mindset I could do it.
Yeah.
So, and you know, and I made that funeral more of I wanted my children to hear stories from other people that knew a part of Sean. And so that's what I did. I gave the life sketch. My son Sean sang Uncle Sean's favorite song at karaokeing, Desperado. And I just opened the floor to whoever wanted to share any stories they had of Sean. So, you know, you heard stories all about, from him driving truck and being the worst truck driver in the world, helping people with AA or NA, how him and my mother started Alateen, so the youth, when their parents went to these programs, the youth had a place to go and talk, you know, how if it was 3 a.m, you could call him and he'd be right there, or he'd talk you through whatever problem you're going through, you know, things like that. And it was good. My children, I thought it was very good that my children got to hear experiences that other people had, you know, with their great Uncle Sean.
Nice. So he had a big heart. I shared that one on the past episode with Nils and Alex. That there was the man who introduced me to Sean, Stanley. And Stanley, I did not know that at that time, but he was very, very, very sick, and he was a friend of Sean. And then actually one day, Sean gave me a call at home, and he says, you know what? He said, Stanley went back to the hospital because he has cystic fibrosis. And he said that when somebody has this disease, usually they can barely make it past their 20s. And Stan was 21, I believe, at that time. So he said to me how grave it was. I said, okay, I'm going to go and see him tomorrow. And then Sean said to me, he said, actually, I'm going to try to get Gene and Paul to give him a call. So when I got to the hospital, he was in the middle of getting a treatment, and then I finally walked in, and then Stanley, he was like in bad shape, but he greeted me with like the biggest smile. He said, you're never going to believe what did happen to me. I said, what? He said, Gene and Paul gave me a call earlier today. I said, oh my God. And so I acted like, you know, surprised, but I was so happy for him because, you know, it was like his ultimate wish that he wanted to have, and it just happened, and that's because of Sean. Sean made everything happen for this kid to have like a final, like, wow. And sadly, Stanley passed away, I think, like 6 months after. But the time that we had together with Sean, it was a very nice connection there. We had a good time. But yeah, Sean had a big heart.
Wow.
He always did things like that. He, I've seen him at the worst of times. I've seen him at the best of times. I think the hardest thing in life that he went through was when my mom, his best friend, passed away. I think that was one of the hardest things, because I watched Uncle Sean, even though that says it was a stroke that killed him, I really believe more of a broken heart.
Okay.
Because it's like my brother put on their headstone. It says, came into the world as brother and sister, left as best friends. And, those two, they were inseparable. They just, my mom bought Sean his first guitar. My mom was the first person Sean managed. They always did everything together. And when Sean moved back home, he was very protective over his sister, my mom, but we made everything work in that little house. My kids actually got to grow up in the house that Leon and Sean spent their high school years in. So it was like a family home. So
home sweet home.
Yep.
Wow. So you were with Sean until the very end.
Yeah.
I was. Sean had actually came back from Arizona, and he was working on the book deal.
Yeah.
And I picked him up from the airport. I let him say goodbye to all his cats, and I let my kids to him. And I took him to the hospital, and they said that before he went into the coma, he totally had over 200 strokes.
Wow.
What?
Wow. That many? Wow.
Was his health bad before that, or I know he had diabetes or something like that, but
yeah, he had the diabetes, but he was an insulin-dependent diabetic, and so when you don't take care of that, and of course he also had an enlarged heart.
Okay.
And he just real quick. And that's something that runs in the family too, is an enlarged heart.
Okay.
And he knew these things, and I think that if my mom would have been still alive, I think he would have fought harder to live.
Yeah.
But I really feel that he felt, his best friend was gone, and he was ready to go too. And so when he had all those strokes, like I said before, he took my hand to his head and called me little darling. He said, get the demons out of my head. And it's very hard, to see someone you love go through that.
Yeah.
And he was writing his last song in the air. He had his hands up in the air and doing the keyboards. And then he went into his coma, and it was 3 days after that is when he passed, and I spent every day with him in ICU.
And for those who don't know, what date was that he passed away? And
So he passed away April 13th, 2003.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
That was pretty close to when he was in Holland, wasn't it?
I think so.
Shortly after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, he'd gone there. He was getting everything ready. He was excited about Wasatch because Gene was coming out to listen to him. He was excited with Bill also to hear Smith and Jackson.
Yeah.
Had all these things in line. So things were going good, but he never wanted to tell me. But I always knew when he wasn't doing well, he just, and he kept telling me, you have your children to look after. I said, well, you're my family too. I don't see us all going anywhere. We're all still here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't think he wanted to be a burden to me. I think that's part of it. And I never would have thought of Uncle Sean as a burden ever.
Mm-mm. Well,
because he probably was taking better care of himself because he had lost a lot of weight and stuff. Because
yeah, because I've seen pictures from that Expo in Holland, and he was really thin at the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw pictures from some years before, he was very thin.
Yeah, and when you see the pictures with the Wasatch, it's quite big.
Yeah, he was very big when he was with Wasatch, and that's when he actually found out more about his diabetes.
Yeah.
Was when he was with Wasatch, and then he just, I don't know, I want to say, he neglected his health, but he didn't. He was very adamant about the insulin, how much he could eat, when to eat, stuff like that. I just think a lot of it is that I think he was tired. I think the will to keep going really went away in 2000 when my mom passed.
mm-hmm.
That was something that I fought every day to get him out of his room. Not stay in there and just, be lonely. Just keep living. It was an effort between actually my brother and I to keep that going for Uncle Sean. So
yeah. So
because my dad has diabetes, and you really have to take care of yourself. It's it's very, very important.
Well, yeah, the death of his mom really was the big blow for sure. That really affected him. But I've seen him before and after, as far as like the video when he went in Amsterdam. And when I saw him on stage, I said, oh my God, he's so thin, he's so skinny. But then when he talked, and especially the fans were asking him about his days with Kiss, and he started lighting up again. Like you can see his drive is coming through, and he's still very, very, very proud of everything he did with Kiss. So that totally it was giving him like some kind of a burst of adrenaline, and he would be talking about it. And it's like, here we go, here goes Sean now. He's talking about it, and he's getting pumped up again. But you can tell he was sick still.
Yeah, you can see it It's the same with the videos you have shown me, Roger. It's like
the crazy eyes.
Yeah, you see it in the eyes at once when he starts to get into it.
Yeah,
and I really remember now. Also, there's a photo I think in Lydia's book of a New Year's Eve party just a couple of years before he passed away. Lydia, Sean, I think it was J.R. Smallin, and I think it was Moose, who actually celebrated New Year's. That was a couple of years before he passed away. I think it was.
I think it was the year before.
Or maybe it was the year before.
I think it's 92, 93, I think.
No, you meant 2002,
2002, 2003.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just remember that picture. Yeah.
Yeah, he's you could really tell what made him happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what, like I like to say, he passed away doing what he loved to do, and that was writing music. He was writing his last song, and I know there was a part of him because he apologized to me. Here comes the emotions, and it's okay. Yeah. He always promised me. He said, "Little darling, I'll always take care of you." And I think he was trying to get everything in place so that I didn't have to work as hard as I had been working. And, it fell a little short, but at the same time, it gave me more strength to keep fighting because I promised him no one would ever forget him. I didn't need the money. I wanted the world to always remember who he was and what he did. And so a lot of times I'm quiet, but a lot of times I'm not. So I appreciate this opportunity because he's an amazing man that I will say has been to hell and back, not just once.
Yeah.
But he also had the biggest heart and always wanted the best for people around him. And I really believe because he's not a man that did business dirty, he didn't think people would be that way to him, you know?
Yeah.
So, because if you're not guilty of being that type of person in life, you don't see it when it's being done to you because you're not that type of person, you know? And I just think I told him he left his mark on this world and he'll never be forgotten.
No.
No, it won't be. I mean, there's a lot of diehard fans that are seeking out there more information about Sean because there's not that much out there, really. So to do this podcast right now with you and being able to show a different side of Sean is like a golden opportunity for the world, actually, of KISS, to see that.
We really appreciate that you're actually joining us. So it's a real treat for us.
Oh, it's an honor. It is. Matter of fact, I went outside this morning and when I knew that house fire next door was going on, and I looked my eyes up to the heaven and I said, okay, Sean, you got to push me. You got to tell me what you want the world to know, because I'll open my mouth, but I need you to tell me what's going to happen. My brother, my youngest brother, had come upstate to go visit our stepmom, and so he was asleep on my couch, and here I am out there carrying on a conversation. He said to me this morning, he goes, "Sis, you're as crazy as the rest of us." I know, right?
But what I wondered, it's like I've always heard that, especially in the 70s and probably later also, he was always demoing stuff and writing stuff all the time. It's like, where did all the stuff he's recorded go?
Okay, Rob and I actually have, I brought one album with me, and we've been in the middle of redoing our studio upstairs. New paint, added guitars, and everything. So I've got one album that has 3 songs on it that Sean wrote, and he's singing on all 3, that has never been released.
Okay. And
so those are songs that I'm going to be putting out.
Cool.
I can't give you a time frame yet until other things done here. And because I even had Richie Fontana and a couple of other people like Kenny Bellinger, and I said, did Sean write these for any of you? Do you know? And everything. And no one has seen these 3 songs. No. And I'm like, okay, Sean, I see how you work. Mm-hmm. You're taking care of me. I still got to do the work. I got this. I got it. I can do this. So we get it out there. I would love to figure out how to get at least a couple of those songs from Highways and put on with this, album that I have. And of course, get a better thing of biscuits and gravy and, things like that it would be a whole Sean Delaney work from the early 70s, basically to when he passed away.
But there has to be a lot of demos from the 70s somewhere also.
I've had 3 different storage units, no matter how hard I try to hide things. And when I took Sean to California one year, his storage unit was broken into.
Okay.
There are people out there that just, they know, refer it to this, but it's like the person on the drug, they know where the deal can be made,
Yeah.
So they're going to sniff it out and go get it. And I'm thinking to myself, are you guys kidding me? This is my storage unit. Things are locked, hid, and under security and everything. And because that's what happened last time I went to Utah. On the 12th, I'm headed back out to Utah of this month. Be gone for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm going to dig through every single piece of paper, anything, and get there so we can get it all completely sorted, categorized, and everything. You know, because there's still...
At least the Wasatch album should exist in somewhere, because they released it on cassette, didn't they?
Wasatch?
Yeah.
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 It was released on cassette. Yeah.
So if anybody has that and wants to sell me that cassette, I want to buy it.
I'm hoping my copy's still out there, because if it is, you know, we can get that whole thing remastered.
Yeah.
And, you know, and what songs were Sean's, you know, we can put out. What songs are the Green Boys, I'm not going to put out. But, you know, of Sean's that he's on and singing, I would love to do that in memory. So, because he's that boy, Sean Delaney. Oh boy, he just well, you know, my oldest son's named after him, and I have a son that's a daredevil, just like Sean was, and that kid used to skate off the roof of our house onto the trampoline and throw a double back tuck and with his rollerblades on. And Uncle Sean's like, well, I taught him that. I told him he could do it. And I'm like, are you serious? Kids are going to kill themselves. Oh, but, you know, man, he went to their games. He went to their tumbling meets. He would tell my daughter all the time that she's got to be the smarter one than the boys, and she'll be just fine. She'll make it, you know, and then he'd always tell stories about me when I was little and make my kids just laugh. And I'm like, are you serious? You're ratting me out. You know, he's the one that taught me about the birds and the bees. And I know I shared it with you guys. Yeah, I mean, you know, one year I still had ponytails and running around looking like a tomboy. The next year he comes home for Christmas and I've filled out and my hair's curled and makeup on, and he just flat out says to my mom, he says, sis, have you talked to DeDe about the birds and the bees? And she's like, no. And he goes, where's the car keys? And we went for a ride. And I don't think I ever wanted to have sex in my life because of that story he was teaching me. I was like, gross. Oh, like, wow.
That's good. You posted a picture of a poster for Play a couple of weeks ago, I think. What was that?
Oh, What the Hell?
Yeah.
That's the name of it. It's called What the Hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean wrote it in San Francisco.
Okay.
That's one of the things that's coming back with us. I didn't know that existed until I cleaned his room out after his death.
What year was that?
You know what? I'd have to research that.
Yeah, okay.
And let you know, because he, you know, my son's got it in his room right now, and I told him it was coming back with me, so it doesn't get to hang on his wall anymore.
But was that before Kiss or after Kiss?
I want to say it was before Kiss. Yeah. It was when he was in San Francisco.
Yeah, because that's not anything that's in the book. So it's like you more or less feel that he just moved to New York and stayed in New York until Kiss broke.
Yeah, see, he lived in California for a long time.
Yeah.
And he, you know, he had places in San Francisco. I think he even lived in San Diego for a little while.
Okay.
And, of course, when Uncle Leon left, he lived in Chatsworth, California for a long time when he was stuntman.
Yeah.
So... but yeah, Leon and Sean, those two have a history that is crazy. It's all I can say is if anybody would have really met my grandfather, Delaney, they would know exactly who those two act like.
Okay.
So they had a role model.
Well, you know, Grandpa was an ornery, mean old man. I mean, he really was. But as far as like business went, he had his own pipelining company in Cranberry, New Jersey. He built a Little League field, and they named it the Delaney Field. He started when they retired in Orem. He did he was really good with kids, just not good with what was inside his four walls, I should say.
Okay.
So inside his house, he just wasn't good with us, but to the world, he was really good and would help any missionary of any church out, would help, you know, anybody that needed an extra hand or whatever. He would do that. But he was different inside our four walls with all of us growing up with him. So, but he did teach me a lot. Yeah. He did teach me how to change a tire, how to change the oil in a car, and how to hit a baseball. So,
and everything about sex.
Grandpa didn't teach me about that. Okay.
Sean did.
Sean did.
Yeah. It's Sean gave me away at my first wedding. He's the one that gave me away. And
oh wow.
Do you know after Sean and Bill broke up, did they stay in contact during all the years, or?
You know, Sean has always had Bill's phone number.
Yeah.
And he's always had Gene's phone number. Like, I've got his old phone book out in Utah, and it still has everybody's phone numbers. He even went when Ace had Fraley's Comet. Yeah. The original. Sean even went on tour with him to help him get that tour going.
He did?
I didn't know that.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he just came back. He was crying. He said he needed to come back home. So, yeah, he helped Ace with that, and he said it was good to see Ace, good to hang out, good to talk, you know, and things like that. So, yeah.
You did mention last time about when you were allowed to go with some of your family to witness a practice that KISS did in the early days. Do you know if there was, like, because you said you were about 10 the first time you met KISS, that was in 75. Do you know how far after that practice happened? That you went to rehearsal?
That rehearsal was all actually while we were there in New York.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So that was 75.
Yeah, so that was all of that beginning part. And I remember Sean's like, do gymnastics. We'd hear Mooney drop down the elevator shaft, and my grandmother would say, what was that? And he'd say, it's just a Mooney. They do it all day long. And I'm like, okay, whatever that means. I didn't know what that meant. But yeah, I was just doing those gymnastics, and of course Russell and John were, you know, talking as kids do, you know, and cousins and everything. And I remember Gene just said that he couldn't be distracted like that, and that's what Sean said to him. Well, what about when all these women pull their bras off and throw them up on stage, and they're sitting there topless at you, you know, like. What distraction's going to be? You know, are you still going to be able to play?
No, I kind of wonder if, because as you remember, Nils, in 73, when Sean started working with KISS, they went in the basement where Sean was living. Yeah. And that's where they were rehearsing. Is this where that thing happened, or there was a different area?
They actually had, I just remember we were in a building.
Okay.
And the elevators didn't work in the building. And that's why I say you could hear people jumping down the elevator shaft.
Okay.
And so, and that's when Stars practiced too.
Okay, it must have been 75 then anyway.
Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure.
Sounds like that, yeah.
And they've been traveling a lot. They were on the road all the time, so maybe they had a different area to rehearse that thing.
But it could fit well, but because I think Sean went out on tour with the Stars just after that.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Stars were rehearsing at the same place, he was probably rehearsing with Stars really.
Makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we're putting the things together.
Yeah, puzzling everything together.
That's good. That's great.
And my grandmother's favorite of all time guitar player though was with Stars, and then went to Scat Brothers, Peter Swivel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she used to watch him in Vegas, ride across the stage on his guitar, and she'd say, one more time.
Actually, the second Scat Brothers albums are one of my favorite albums. I really love that record. I'm not too fond of the first one, but the second one is just amazing.
Oh, Rico and the Ravens?
Yeah. Because that's more like a rock and roll album than the first one. The first one was more like a disco dancing record, and I really felt they found themselves on the second record. So it's too bad they didn't record more.
I know it is too bad. From that first album with Scat Brothers, Life at the Outpost, when I was in high school, I choreographed a bunch of marches for our dance team and for our drill team. And I went to a competition, and there were 4 teams. I think it's 4 teams that were all doing a march to Life at the Outpost.
Okay.
And I cracked up laughing. I said, where did you guys get that music from? Like, I thought at the time I was about the only person in Utah that had that album.
Yeah.
Like, where'd you get that from? They're like, well, our advisor had it. And I went, okay. So I went outside to call Leon. I mean, not Leon, Sean, and tell him that, it's a tune that everybody out here is doing their marches to.
Wow.
It's not every day you hear your family's music and somebody's doing marches to them and drills and, dances and stuff.
Well, something that is kind of connected with the fact that, like, kind of result when you write a song and you see how many people it didn't affect. I forgot exactly where I heard it, but I don't know if you remember that when Sean went back to see Kiss after he left Kiss, and then Paul said, just watch this, and he started to play I Want You, and then he let the entire crowd singing the beginning. And then it was like, oh my God. When Sean heard that the entire stadium or wherever they were, they all knew every word. So it was like, I wrote that and everybody's singing it. So there's nothing bigger than that, like as far as like feeling proud of something. So that was pretty powerful.
That's the power of music, I guess. I mean, it was written on an acoustic guitar, I guess. And then the whole stadium is singing the song. I mean, it's really...
And Paul knew, right? He said, watch this.
Yeah.
And he just started playing without singing, and wow. So that must have been something for him.
Sean he loved going to their concerts and sitting there. And I can't remember who posted the picture, but it's of Sean sitting, watching the concert from like the second or first row. And they said he just looks so sad. And I remember I commented on it and I said, oh no, he is critiquing that show because as soon as they get off that stage, he's going to tell them everything they did wrong.
Yeah.
I know that look, man. I knew that look way too much. It was like, nah, he's not sad. He's watching it and he's like in his head going, I know what I've got to do here. I got to do this. You got to do this. He's ready to give him 1, 2,
Wow.
Just amazing.
The old teacher.
Oh,
because that's a little bit sad. We always say that on this show that Sean never got the credit he should have gotten when it comes to what he did for Kiss. Because we always said that, no Sean, no Kiss. That's what we always say on this show. So, it feels a little sad, that he. But the cool thing was that when Kiss was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think it was Peter who actually said thank you to Sean, and I think that was really great.
Yeah.
That was beautiful to see. I teared up.
Yeah.
I teared up, and it just, how do I say this? When Sean passed away, Gene posted on his website that a letter to the family and stating all the fans that Sean believed in Kiss when no one else in the world did.
Yeah.
And that without Sean, there would be no Kiss. And as a family member, that statement means a lot.
Yeah.
It's big words.
It means a lot, and I know that Sean's legacy lives on. I actually have a friend I went to high school with that he wanted Sean to hear his band in Utah.
Yeah.
And so Sean, first word Sean said to him, he says, I can critique you as a professional, or I can lie to you and be your friend. Which one do you want to hear from?
Mm-hmm.
And, Alan said, I want to hear it professionally. And he said, then, okay, I'll listen. And he listened to him, and now Alan's band, matter of fact, Alan's made a living just touring the little western states with his band his whole life. He's made a good living at it. And he said that was one of the neatest experiences he ever had, was to have Sean Delaney in that room and be able to critique him, and that he was able to learn from it and go forward, not think, oh, well, I think I'm better than that. But I mean, when you ask for someone to critique you that's been in the business and knows it, then you should be willing to hear what they have to say,
Yeah. But if you're professional, you survive to hear on other people's opinions of you. So it's like, that's the same with me. I'm a graphic artist, and so it's like when people tell me what they think, I like to hear what people think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sean had a way, like when my kids, and I couldn't get through to them, or they wanted to quit something, he always had a way with my children to find it inside themselves to reach further and harder and educate themselves. One of Sean's famous sayings to our family was always, if you've chosen not to learn something new every day, then you chose to stop living.
Yeah.
And that's just always stuck with me. Because, if you choose to keep learning, it doesn't matter what it is, you learned something new today. So, you're still alive, you're still doing good. And, little things like that. My kids, when they call to talk to me, that's things, they always remember the sayings him and my mom used to say to them all the time. And I mean, my mom and Uncle Sean, when they were kids, they made up the words and they said it all the time as adults through the house. Clerney, Cranus, and Crackamadacus. And I have no idea what they mean, but that is just something that those two, from children all the way to when they left this earth, would say.
That's just amazing.
Great story.
Yeah.
Well,
but I think we'll probably come to the end about this now. It's a nice way to end it all.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming on with us. And
thank you.
We'll stop the same way as we always do. Keep on
Keep on
kissing!
kissing!